glad to say that of the two of us running, I'm the only one that can credibly say I'm not under investigation for corruption. So my mission here today and for the rest of the campaign and into the governorship is simple. We need to protect Florida's future for us and the next generation. And we need to start by protecting Florida's economic momentum. Governor Scott deserves a lot of credit for what he did to attract jobs to Florida, to grow jobs for Florida. I don't know that the economy has ever been stronger in Florida's history, but here's the thing. I don't think we've even come close to reaching our potential. We have a historic opportunity, given the fact that we have a good economic climate, given the fact that we are a low-tax state, to capitalize off that, particularly as people look in higher tax states with what happened with the federal tax bill. They can't deduct the tax increases anymore, the state income taxes. So that's made Florida as attractive as ever. And I think we could have record investment in our state in manufacturing and technology and finance. That's growing a broader economic base with higher paying jobs and more opportunity for the people of Florida. That's there for the taking, but you got to have good policy and you got to have good leadership. And that's exactly what I'll bring as the governor. To protect and expand education opportunities for folks here in the state of Florida. And one of the best ways we can do that, I believe, is to have a renewed focus on vocational education, technical training in our high schools. We can partner with local industry. We need to incentivize things like industry certifications, because here, look, I worked very hard to go to college and get advanced degree, and that's good for a lot of people, and I want that pathway to be there. But I remember being told that unless you go to a traditional college, you can't be successful, and that's not true. A four-year brick and ivy education is one way you can be successful, but it's not the only way, and indeed for many people it's not the best way. And so I want to make sure those opportunities are available, because if you do that and you acquire those skills, you don't have to go deep into debt, and you can be very productive and make good money. There's an honor in doing that. People should teach sacrifice to doing it. We shouldn't act like somehow you're not as good because you didn't do the traditional 4 years. First of all, why would anyone want to go $100,000 in debt just to get a degree in zombie studies? I mean, like, what? So we'll make sure we do that, and that'll be more opportunity for folks, but it'll also mean, as we're building a stronger economy here in Florida, the fact that we're focusing on things like that as a state, that's going to cause more businesses to want to come here because they know they're going to have a good workforce to be able to hire folks. And so it's a win-win situation, and we'll work very, very hard to make sure that that's a priority in all of Florida's schools. I also think that I'm also on a mission to protect Florida's environment, because here that's the lifeblood of everything that works in our state, and particularly when you talk about water and making sure we have clean water. You know, it affects different parts of the state differently. Some of the places like Southwest Florida had a really rough summer because of some of the toxic algae, some of the red tide, some of the mixture of the two. And so we need to make sure that we have Florida's plumbing under control, that we have water that's clean and available, because it is an environmental issue, of course, but it's also an economic issue. It affects every aspect of our economy, from locally to statewide. And if you don't have a solid environment and you start losing out on tourism, you start losing out on businesses, that's one of the reasons why we have no state income taxes. We have a lot of people that visit our state and contribute through the sales tax and other ways. So it is an economic issue as well. I will be able to get this done because I have the ability to work productively with the Trump administration to make sure that we have good folks in our state agencies and on these state boards. And so we will get that done. I don't know how you work with the federal government if you're running for governor on a platform of impeaching Trump, but you know, some people do, some people don't. That's just the way it is. So we'll make sure that we protect Florida's environment for the next generation. And then we also have to protect Florida's communities and really stress safe communities. And here's the thing, we've had a decline in crime throughout most parts of Florida. Not in Tallahassee, but in most parts of Florida. But that does not happen by accident. I think the sheriff will tell you, you don't have safe communities by accident. It requires people who are willing to put on the uniform, protect and serve, and that means, you may be called upon to put your life at risk in order to save members of the community. It requires elected officials who will stand by the men and women in law enforcement and not only support them, but support their mission and provide them with the resources they need to be able to get that done. It also means that you have, as a state, have to be willing to cooperate with the federal government. For example, if we have a criminal illegal alien here that is serving a sentence, when they come out, they must be transferred to ICE so they can be taken out of our country. The next governor will be able to have a golden opportunity to appoint 3 justices to the state Supreme Court. We've had an activist liberal court for a generation. We have 4 members of that court who what I would describe as liberal activists, 3 who are solid constitutionalists. The 3 vacancies that are occurring all are liberal activist judges' vacancies. They're retired. I will appoint judges who understand the proper role of the court is to apply the law and Constitution as it's actually written, not to rewrite the law, not to rewrite the Constitution, not to legislate them, and certainly not to impose their personal philosophies on the rest of the state. These will be judges who are grounded in the Constitution and the rule of law, judges like Justice Clarence Thomas on the U.S. Supreme Court. That is the type of people we will appoint. And when we do that successfully with those 3 selections, we will have ended judicial activism in Florida for a generation. Now, we are running a race against a guy who he's really upset because I referred to him by his first name in the debate. Oh, show respect, don't call me Andrew. All right, whatever, you can call me Ron, I don't care. But if we're gonna play that game, I mean, you gotta be honest with what you're doing. So if he wants a proper title, I mean, I could do it, but I gotta be honest about how I'm doing it. So if he wants a proper title, I mean, I can do Crooked Mayor Gillum. He's in this debate a week ago, and I asked, because he's been under investigation, he's had all these questions. It doesn't really get asked by the press very often at all. I mean, imagine if I were under investigation, they'd have reporters camped out by the federal grand jury. I mean, it would be nonstop. So I really had to just hold him accountable. And basically, he got upset. He said, I'm a grown man. I've paid for everything in my life. I've never taken anything for free, and all this other stuff. And it turns out, like 2 days later, documents come out. He was on a junket to New York with a guy who was posing as a contractor looking to do business with the city, but was actually an undercover FBI agent who greased Andrew's palms with a ticket worth $1,000. Now that's an illegal gift, we know that. Then the same lobbyist who arranged that trip gave Andrew a free stay in Costa Rica worth about $1,000 at this luxury villa for 4 nights. So that's another $1,000. And here's the thing, he then turned around and gave those same lobbyists a contract with the city for $2 million to build a restaurant. So that's just the typical corrupt municipal politics that I think people are sick of. Now, what Crooked Mayor Gillum will say is, oh, I'm not under investigation. That's just not true. But let me ask you this. Can somebody give me one reason why an undercover agent would be greasing his palms if they weren't investigating him? Come on. Now, he's trying to use every excuse in the book and tried to do misdirection, but here's the thing. With respect to his conduct and his leadership, it's not about black versus white. It's about right versus wrong. How you're going to view serving in office. And some of the speakers had mentioned, you know, I was somebody who, I mean, I had a very good resume. I could have made a lot of money. I decided to raise my hand and serve in the armed forces, raise my hand and serve in Iraq and volunteer, serve as a prosecutor, helping defend victims in our community. When I got to Congress, the first thing I did was decline the pension benefits for members of Congress. They should not be getting these pensions. They're a waste of tax dollars. Obamacare subsidies, which are not legal. I helped stop a pay increase for members of Congress. Rolled that back. And then I supported term limits and was the leader supporting of term limits. And I introduced the proposed 28th Amendment, which said Congress shall make no law respecting the citizens of the United States that does not also apply to the Congress itself. I viewed service, whether in uniform, you're serving your country first. As a prosecutor, you're serving the community and serving victims. As an elected official, I was putting taxpayers first. Andrew has used a political office to feather his own nest and put himself first. And that's a big difference. We don't need that type of failed leadership as governor. That's just the bottom line. Work for a name. I mean, I could also say failed Mayor Gillum, because if you look in Tallahassee, he has failed to keep his community safe. Tallahassee is one of the most crime-ridden cities in Florida year after year. Last year, Tallahassee had the highest number of murders in the history of the city. In fact, one of the guys running to succeed him as mayor was Andrew's former chief of staff. And this candidate is sending out literature to people in Tallahassee saying, last year we had most murders in history, highest crime rate in Florida. Something needs to change. We need leadership now. Yeah, you do, because your current mayor hasn't provided the leadership. And now he, in the debate, he thought, oh, he was joking about this as if it was funny. I can tell you, when crime can shatter the lives of victims, it can shatter the lives of family. It's not funny. His failure isn't funny. He's let down the people of Tallahassee, but here's the thing. I wish I could say it was just because, you know, he wasn't quite competent enough to get the job done. I mean, I think that may be part of it, but a lot of it is his hostility to law enforcement and how he views the role. He can't keep the community safe. He signed a pledge. First of all, I've been endorsed by the overwhelming majority of sheriffs, the Police Benevolent Association, Highway Patrol, just another police union. I didn't even know some of these groups existed, and they're all endorsing me. Now, part of that is because I have a strong record of standing with the men and women in law enforcement, as Sheriff Chidwood said. But look, part of the reason is because Andrew has signed a pledge with a radical group called the Dream Defenders, which says that the police and prisons, he signed his name to this, police and prisons, they say, have no place in justice. They say that law enforcement should be defunded and the money should be diverted to welfare programs. That is unacceptable. So he doesn't support our men and women in uniform. He doesn't support the mission. And if he's signing a pledge saying he's going to cut police budgets, how the heck is that going to keep our communities safe? It's not. But then you add to that the fact that this is a guy that wants to abolish ICE. He wants open borders. He wants Florida to be a sanctuary state. And just yesterday, his running mate saying that they welcome the caravan to just come right across our border. Right across the border with no, so, you know, you either have a country or you don't. You either have sovereign borders or you don't. And it's interesting, this caravan, Mexico offered them a place, and they turned Mexico down. Because it's not about finding a safe haven, it's about proving that people can overrun our border with impunity. And we can't let that happen. I don't want people overrunning our border illegally. And so Gillum King, they support allowing that to happen. I don't think that's right. I think that's a wet kiss to the drug cartels when you can just come across the border and move product. So we should not let that happen. But certainly, as governor, I can tell you, we will not be a sanctuary state here in Florida. whole rest of the state would be very damaging for our communities, and so we can't let that happen. Now, he could also call him Radical Mayor Gillum, because this Dream Defenders group, he will not disavow them. I mean, he called them from the debate stage during the Democratic primary, saying he stands with them, he stands by him, he wants to give a shout out to him. Well, and then he signed the pledge saying he'd support their Freedom Papers agenda. If you guys want to educate yourself, Google Dream Defenders Freedom Papers and just read it. And they talk about different things. They attack the police, as I mentioned, but they also do things like attack our military. In fact, the manifesto that he endorsed says that the United States is the biggest bully in the history of the planet. That's what it says in there. And it also said the military needs to be defunded. Now, here's what I know. I know that the folks I served with after 9/11, they were not bullies. They were fighting terrorism. They were standing up for our country. The boys that stormed the beaches of Normandy, they were not bullies. The Marines that hoisted the flag over Iwo Jima, they were not bullies. They were American heroes. You've got to stand up for our veterans. Yeah. And if you sign a pledge saying you support calling the U.S. the biggest bully, I don't know how you're going to be standing up for veterans. Of course, Andrew has no concept of what it means to serve, but the bottom line is that is just unacceptable. I mean, when we're at the National Mall welcoming our World War II veterans on their honor flights so that they can visit the memorial that's there for them that they earned, that's a great moment because they help save the world for our behalf. And that is what it means to serve. But think about signing this thing saying you want to defund the military. I mean, you look around our state, we have a pretty heavy military footprint. You got a Navy Reserve Center down the road in Orlando. Obviously, MacDill's a very important node in Tampa. Northeast Florida has several bases. Northwest Florida has several bases. It is a very important part of our DNA as a state. I want to defend that as governor. I don't want to be advocating for cutting that out. And also you look at what that does with the industrial base opportunities that we have. I mean, we have places like in Brevard County where I was last night, Northrop Grumman doing great things that are producing good paying jobs. And St. Augustine, they did the E2D Hawkeye that I helped with that in the Congress. These are good jobs for folks. And so when you're advocating cutting military spending, understand that's going to have a hugely negative impact on Florida's way of life and our economy. So as governor, I will stand with our active duty vets and I will stand with our former vets. And read the section on the economy, they talk about replacing free enterprise with principles that are so socialistic and radical that they would make Nicolas Maduro blush. And so I would just urge everyone to take a look at that and send that around. So look, we have a very clear contrast, and I think that I'm the guy that's going to be able to protect Florida's future. I need your help along the way. You have a little bit more than a week to go. Of course, you can vote early. Many of you probably have voted early. But if you've already voted, then your job is not over. I mean, you need to make sure that you're talking to your friends, your family, and your neighbors, and get them to come out to vote. It's an important election. The result of this election will have a major impact on their lives. If I win, we'll be building off the success Florida's had, and I think that will be good for folks. If Andrew wins, he's going to implement policies that are going to be destructive for Florida's future. It's going to stop our economic momentum. It's going to tax people more. It's going to cause jobs to be lost, and on down the line. So the stakes are important. The stakes are high. And we need you guys there for everything. Now, I was thinking about kind of leadership and what that matters, because the truth of the matter is, as governor, you obviously want to support someone you agree with that's going to pursue a vision that you agree with. That's very, very important. But you also need somebody who's going to be a leader when they're governor. And the fact is, most people that get elected to political office, particularly career politicians, they're not leaders. And there's a difference between being a leader and being somebody who's just playing the typical political games and doing the typical political arts. I think you saw that when we debated how Andrew is in terms of being a typical politician, not taking responsibility for anything, not being honest about his record and all these other things. And that's not what we need in the state of Florida, because we're going to have issues that come up over the next 4 to 8 years that we're not even thinking about right now. And the question is, who do you trust to be able to handle those issues in a way that's going to be good for the people of Florida? Who's going to handle it and take responsibility? Who's going to handle it with integrity? Who's going to handle it with honesty? And I'm the guy that's going to be able to do that. So just as when the Navy, when I took the oath when I took the oath in the Congress, and then I take the oath in the governor, we'll be taking that oath to support and defend the Constitution. We'll stand for those key principles that make our country unique. And in doing so, I really believe that we will make Florida better than ever, and I think we will make Florida's future bright as can be. So I leave you with this. Do whatever you can over the next week and 1 day. Take all the action you can, whether it's knock on people's doors, call people, email people, what have you, because in doing so, when we're successful on November 6th, you will have done your part to help protect Florida's future for generations to come. And so I promise you this, as governor, I will fight the good fight. I will finish the race. I will keep the faith on behalf of God, country, and the people of Florida. Thank you.